So I just want to introduce our panel today, very esteemed panel joining us here at the, again, Aliʻiōlani Hale, President of Puʻuhonua o Waimānalo, Mr. Bumpy Kanahele. Thank you, sir. Vice President Brandon Makaʻawaʻawa. Mahalo. Some powerful words on the screen, my friend. Our second Vice President, Mr. John Kealoha Garcia. Senior Executive Advisor, Lindsay Kukona Pakele. Minister of Land and Natural Resources, Kealiʻi Frank. And Puʻuhonua Mākeke founder, Lehua Kanahele-Santos. So again, mahalo to each of you for being here and spending some time. What we're going to just do is go down the row, if that's okay, or in whatever order you feel, just to tell us a little bit about yourselves and your role in the Nation of Hawaiʻi. So if Uncle Bumpy, you want to start, or we can start down here with John. Okay, we'll start with John then.
Aloha everyone, mahalo nui for joining us tonight. It's an honor to be here and to share a little about our work here at the Nation of Hawaiʻi in Hawaii and around the world. My name is John Kealoha Garcia. I was born and raised here on Oahu in Kaimuki. My background is I have about a 25+ year career in creative and entrepreneurship here in Hawaii in different sectors from media to nonprofit sector. I joined the Nation about 5 years ago and have been contributing in a number of different ways. Currently overseeing the foreign affairs of the Nation of Hawaiʻi, including supporting the executive branch of the nation, including President Kanahele and the rest of the team, and managing an international team of 50+ councils from over 10 countries from around the world who know what aloha is and they know what our history is. And so I'm honored to be here and share a little bit more about some of the work that we're doing on an international level, and look forward to taking some questions after as well. Mahalo.
My name is Brandon Makaʻawaʻawa. My family is from Papakolea, but I grew up mostly in Waimānalo. And you know, before I did this, I actually used to work at Long Strokes. I was just like a regular kanaka like everybody else. You know, when I found out who I was, I really found my purpose in life. And so, yeah, thank you guys for joining us, and hope you guys have good questions. Yeah, plenty of answers.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lindsay Pakele. I'm a Hawaiian, been in diaspora for half our life, but I was lucky to be born and structured in the island of Kealoha. I was to the States, and I was raised in Connecticut, and when I was there at the time, I was a teacher in New York, but about 9 years ago, or 2011, I came back to law school here, so I don't know what it is. And the way to do that, I actually think that's I met Brandon. That was when I was able to join the Nation. And so I've been an educator, a lawyer. I currently do civil rights compliance for myself. But I had the honor to get to know the work of the Nation, and luckily I did some legal here and there. But in terms of that big UN, I had the honor of helping create the UN initiative for Nation Hawaiʻi. And every year we met since 2017, we were able to share not just the story of the nation, but the story of Hawaiian people, and to bring kind of awareness of where we are and where we want to go. I would like to say that sovereignty work is Hawaiian rights work, right? Anyone here who does Hawaiian rights work does sovereignty work, and those things are interchangeable and so very important. And I'm very honored, and just everyone thinks of Uncle as a Hawaiian sovereignty activist. I consider him a Hawaiian rights advocate and champion, and so very honored to be welcome into this space, and mahalo.
Aloha, my name is Lehua Kanahele. I was born and raised in Puʻuhonua, Waimānalo, and I went to Kulakaipunio Puʻuhala. Grew up farming with my dad, and here today I started the Puʻuhonua Mākeke to build our Ahupua economic system using modern day technology. And also just to share my farming experience, I'm all about la'au lapa'au and healing yourselves from the inside and out. Mahalo.
Aloha, I'm Kealiʻi Frank. Been a resident at Puʻuhonua probably about 4 years now. Born and raised on the island of Oahu. And in the short period of time of spending here at Puʻuhonua, there's just an enormous amount of, one, beauty, but huge realization that we are just a blimp in time in terms of how many Hawaiians were living in that space. Enormous amount of archaeology, enormous amount of restoration that needs to be done. So I would say some of the roles involving of what I do there is just being one of many spearheads for what the ʻāina needs there. We do a lot of education. We definitely believe that that's the answer to a lot of the things we need for our people. When they're steered in the right direction, we can do a lot of things. So we do a lot of work with all the kids in Waimānalo, Malama Honua, the elementary schools, Pope schools, the last school that we're aiming at doing some work with. But another thing that we've been really focusing on is when we're in these spaces, the invasive species is just overwhelming. So the revalue of what we're gonna do with these enormous albesias, the eucalyptus. So we run a sawmill, and figuring out how we're gonna shift and reframe these negative impacts on the forest and how we're gonna have them come back to our community. So we have a lot of things to share on that regard, but thank you for coming out.
Hi, aloha. Oh, well, I'm glad everybody went first because this is the next generation. I think my name is Bumpy, Puʻuhonua, Kanahele, and I've been involved with this for a long time. Seemed like Auntie Lou over there, she's one of the old timers. But I think it was, the challenge was to find same kind of people like you, this generation, right? Because it's sometimes the old guys, they don't like leave the seat. And so I worked hard to like just, keep an eye on who was coming through the village and who I met, and because you're dealing with a whole bunch of stuff, not just the government, the change in generations. So when you get one change in generation, you can lose planning knowledge, if you're not careful. And I think that's what we're learning, the nation, how important it is for, having the connect between the baby and the kupuna. That is so important for more than one reason. And I think you're gonna be pretty surprised at some of the people that sitting up here, their experience, they get expertise like that is totally necessary, especially when you work for free. None of them get paid, they're doing this on their own time. Everything we do is like on our own time. But, that's a simple price to pay, I think, for our country and for our people. So we spend a lot of time like doing what we're supposed to do as the nation and not so much worried about who doing what, because we know who not doing what they're supposed to do. And so we kind of take on that kuleana, just do it, get it done. Too much talking. Sometimes I think democracy left too much pukas in life itself, and it's, it's an animal now. Not a good animal either. And, I see other countries where we go and travel, and they deal with population, they deal with social, conditions and stuff like that. I never seen that before. And And it make me wonder which one is democratic or does democracy? Which country does that, really? Right? But anyway, this is, again, when you build, I found that when you build a nation, and I've probably been in every convention, constitutional convention, coalition that Hawaii had except for 1945, the United Nations. I've been in every one and was always on dead end, was always on dead end. And me and Johnny was talking the other day, said, bro, people run to this country for freedom and the gold and all these things that they can reach when they reach America. But then, if it's built on a crime, then a lot of criminals come into America too, to partake in, the spoils of what they took. And that's what's happened to us. But, we really have a lot of solutions for all this too, that we actually rather talk about than our history. But the history gotta be brought out, because most people don't know. This law was hidden for 30 years almost by different sectors of society, education and all that. It's pretty much covered up. But I couldn't see any place else where America confessed to the crimes committed against us. No place else. Confession was in the law. Admission against interest, that's what the attorneys call it. That's what Francis Boyle said. So I think that the discussion that we're going to have tonight, we had more planned out, our history, all that kind of stuff, but I think I just turn them back over to you.
Well, I have a question. When you said history, can you talk about, I do want to get into the apology resolution in a moment, but can you talk about the founding of Puʻuhonua and how significant that is for you and everyone that's a part of it now, and where you see that into the future?
When we got the land, see, in 93, a lot of things happened, right? January 17, we had the 100-year commemoration. And then that July, the governor appointed a 21-member Sovereignty Advisory Commission, which I was a part of. I was appointed. In fact, I was the first one appointed. And when he called, I was like, I think the state is illegal. Why are you calling me to sit on this commission, right? And he said, well, I thought we'd add, expand the box, right? Get out of the box and expand that. So I ended up doing that. But that allowed me access to documents, all kinds of stuff, right? You work for the state, the government, any part of it, you can get access to all these things. And that's what happened. And so as a Sovereignty Advisory Commission, I was the head of the International Committee, myself and Poka Lainui. And we were tracking our apology law because it didn't pass yet until November. And then when it passed, then the commission decided to bring in international attorneys to give us an idea what this law meant. What did America just do by signing this into law? And the attorney was real clear in that. Now that, now that the United States have finally admitted to what they've done, that the Hawaiian people can proclaim and restore the country they had before. And so as a commissioner, I really had to think twice because I'm an activist first. So I decided to resign from the commission. And Francis Boyle gave us the Kupuna Council and us the 15 points to follow that we could do now that this law has passed. And so the whole thing was, well, proclaim the restoration of your independence, first of all. We did that January 16, 1994. and immediately go into a constitutional convention, which we did too in 1994, and promulgated the Hawaii Constitution in 1995, January 16th. The day, it was always the day before the overthrow, because the kupuna had one thought and prayer that they was going to wipe out the day, the 17th day, so they wanted the wipeout be, okay, we're going to make this constitution on the 16th, and proclaim on the 16th, and that's what happened, and that's what started, because we started the occupation in 93, but then we ended in 94, and we were going through all these talks about creating a nation during that time. And then after about 15 months, then the government came to us and said, we're going to start evicting people from Makapu. And then real quick, what happened was the next day, early in the morning, a lady came, drop off this envelope and this crystal heart, and told me, try to read this, and this is, I had a visitor last night, and it was a spiritual kind of thing. So anyway, that day I decided to talk to the kupunas. We're going to leave the mountain. So I took the letter, I went down a beach park, Waimānalo. I was talking to God and asking him, what am I going to do? What am I going to do, right? And then on the beach, had these two people walking. It was two ʻāinas, and one older, one younger. And I'd be damned, it was the deputy chairperson for DLNR. I was, she came up, and I seen her on the beach, and I go, oh man, you just answered my prayers. What you talking about? Turns out that she was under Keith Hui that time in 1993. For some of you guys, you might not know that name, but he made that possible. He wanted this thing to work. And her name was Donna Hanaike, by the way. She's a good friend, from way back then. And so I said, Donna, what you doing here? Because I just went and asked God, forgive me on sign, you come walking up the beach. And she's the one we actually were doing the stuff, the paperwork with. She goes, what you doing here? I said, you wouldn't believe if I told you. I went and asked God, forgive me on solution about the occupation, whether I should leave, go. And as soon as I reported that, I seen you walking down the beach, and tell me there's no one side, right? Tell me there's no one side. That's what made me leave the beach, by the way. Every story that you hear other than this is BS. This is exactly what would happen. And to your story on the land, so they told us, hey, we'll give you 45 acres, and we'll give you these acreage, and, this and that, and we'll help you move the, houses and stuff that we built there. And, but I wasn't satisfied signing, because I wanted to sign the lease that it would be turned over to the Nation of Hawaiʻi at some point in time. And so they didn't get to sign it, 93, 94. Finally, in 2001, Cayetano administration, they signed it. So we have a lease, a clause in there that was added to a boilerplate lease that states carefully that we have 45 acres, 55-year lease unless a sovereign nation, sovereign entity, sovereign nation of Hawaii comes about for the benefit of Native Hawaiians. That's what made us do what we did. And we explained to everybody from that time till now that that's what happened. Nobody heard, So we just kept going. Keep plugging away. The law. They were worried about the law. Not Bumpy, not the action, the law. Because they put it in there, in that lease in the 90s. And finally when it came to Cayetano, he calls me into the White House across the street, and hey, I can't give this land to you, the nation. I said, well, give them to the nation when it comes about, right? So to your story, that's how we got the land.
So the 55-year lease comes up soon, 20 years or so?
No, it started in 2001, so
Oh, not from 90s.
2056 is.
And then what happens? I mean, if we're not already restored by then.
I think the next move for us is to see the state, and we are the nation.
Right.
It's in the lease already, but this is like what? Figure 20 years, or over 20 years now. So the idea is to go back there and turn that back into communal, turn it over to us.
Nice. Thank you. I want to now, on the way, everybody was able to pick up a copy of two documents outside. One, Public Law 103-150, signed on November 23rd, 1993, the apology resolution, essentially, and the other, a document on definition of genocide. And I'd love to turn it over to you folks, whoever would like to talk about these documents. And if you didn't grab one, there's still a few outside. But I think if we could start with what does the resolution, which you already touched on, Uncle Bumpy, but if we can take maybe a deeper dive for everyone's thoughts on what the apology resolution looks like for, in general, however you want to define that, its significance perhaps.
I think the apology law, it's interesting for a couple different reasons, but it's both a practical sort of document that can be utilized and has been utilized by the nation to exercise Hawaiian national sovereignty in a real practical way, right? If any of you have visited the nation, there's a gate. The state of Hawaii, the city and county, the US cannot come in unless they have permission of the people there, in this case, you know, Nation of Hawaiʻi government, et cetera. And so I think about this question as that sovereignty is both a practice, right? It's something you do, but it's also something you use. So in that way, the apology law, and as Uncle said, admissions against guilt of all the bad things the US did through, you know, all those Hale men who did all the bad things, imprecisely said, but it's essentially an admission of what was stolen from the Hawaiian people, but also a promise as to a restoration process. There are some people who kind of view the last clause as limiting. I view it as expansive. You would never want the US government to tell Hawaiians what sovereignty looks like, what it means, what land they're entitled to. You'd want Hawaiians to come to the table to deal with the US and state governments, and in a collaborative process, determine it that way. Because when you have in the UN terms, when you have member states dictating to peoples who they are and what they deserve, you often get less, right? And so when I think of the apology law, and I've made this argument, I've written about it, I think it's the most expansive iteration of original people's rights, right? You can say indigenous, whatever, but the original people of this land, the Hawaiians, had all the land at one time, and through this law, there's an admission that it was stolen improperly and it needs to be given back, I think, in that way, as opposed to if a court decided what someone's land rights look like, as opposed to if a legislative action decided what Hawaiians are entitled to. This instead essentially affirms in law in the same way as our country was illegally transferred to the states, right? It's the same sort of joint resolution. So in that way, it's a really nice parallel that it essentially promises a process, but it also affirms that people like the Nation of Hawaiʻi, Puʻuhonua, Waianae, and anyone else who wanted to exercise sovereignty in that way could, because there is a model for it. And so I think that's the legal significance. And to circle back to the clause in the lease, it's clause 61, but essentially other than Kaho'olawe, which we all know that's not really a great place for Hawaiian Nation to be. Other than that, the Nation of Hawaiʻi, through its lease, is the only other legal framework or document where the state of Hawaii promises sort of acknowledging land of the Hawaiian Nation. So in that way, it's really, really important. And so Uncle had asked me a question, because I don't know if a lot of you know, but Nation of Hawaiʻi does a lot of business relations with other countries, governments, businesses, et cetera. And they always ask, hey, if I invest in you, am I protected? And said, yes, we have the law, we have the lease, and we have the practical exercise for over 30 years that the nation has been left alone, right, by its external governments. And this isn't to say that there aren't still conflicts between the state and the US government, and there needs to be, like I said, that coming together at the table. But it also is to say that through practices of aloha and peaceful coexistence, the nation of Hawaii has sort of navigated those tricky jurisdictional questions, right, by using that land to take care of its people. And so if the apology law originally talks about the dire conditions, the dire socioeconomic conditions of the Hawaiian people, the Puʻuhonua is the solution, right? And so Nation of Hawaii is one way of doing it. It's not to say that it's the only, but I think it's a practical model, and that's what we shared about at the UN Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues. And I must say the response was very positive, not just from Hawaiians that we knew or didn't know, but also from other indigenous or native peoples around the world, many of whom don't even have state recognition, don't have court recognition, don't have legislative recognition. Hawaiians are actually, legally speaking, quite lucky. We get all the things without the limitations thus far. So limitations insofar as our land base hasn't been defined yet, right? It shall be. We hope it will be expansive and we'll take the whole thing back. But in that way, I think it's very interesting legally and practically.
Brandon, do you want to add something?
Yeah, well, I just want to add too, like, Lindsay is a lawyer, so she always looks at it from a lawyer's view. And, I'm just a regular Kanaka that didn't go to law school, but, it's still easy to understand and see how this could be kind of like overlooked, right? But you got to understand that the Hawaiian people are the only people that ever got apologized to for any of these things, and that's a key, because there hasn't been any apology since that. And that's for, a serious reason, because they unlocked this Pandora's box that they can't put back in. And so our kuleana as the nation is not just to establish Puʻuhonua Waimānalo, it's to exercise the law to its furthest, right? This is now where we're taking the law and we're educating people on our own, because the education system has failed to educate us on the apology law. When I grew up, we didn't learn nothing about the apology law. Maybe somebody mentioned it somewhere, but something this significant needed to be emphasized, because now what we've done to the law is we've gone all the way to the UN. We've gone to speak at other nations and other forums. We've entered into treaties. So this is just like a tool that we would like to share with all Kanaka and even non-Kanaka, because this is codified. This cannot be amended already, so we have to start the reconciliation process. And for us, we never wait till the state started the reconciliation process for us. We never wait for the US government to start that process for us. We made these moves so that we didn't have to wait, so we could see what was going to be out there for our people. And if we waited, we wouldn't have Puʻuhonua Waimānalo. We wouldn't have all these opportunities we have here today. And so talking with you guys, if there's a call to action to us, is please take a copy of the apology law when you guys go outside. Everybody on Zoom, go to nationofhawaii.org and download this copy, because people need to understand this law, and we need to practice how we can assert leverage with this law. We've already done a few things that people can learn from, but there's a bunch of different things that we haven't even thought of yet. And this is for the next generation to exercise that. And it's done peacefully, it's done with aloha, but it's done powerfully. So.
Does anybody else want to add their thoughts on the apology resolution? But I would, if you want to, please.
That the first whereas clause in the apology law, try to take a look at that. That gives you an idea of what they destroyed. Whereas prior to the arrival of the first Europeans in 1778, Native Hawaiian people lived in a highly organized, self-sufficient, subsistence social system based on ahupua'a, or communal land tenure with a sophisticated language, culture, and religion. That was before they came. And that, that fits all cultures as far as I'm concerned. We all had the same thing done to us somehow, some way, in that manner. We were self-sufficient. We had a subsistence system, and we was one with Mother Nature. So the law really wouldn't affect us as Hawaiians. Deep pain and just destruction. And that's why I mentioned genocide, because even the attorney said there was be no problem to submit that they could get charges against the United States for genocide against the Hawaiian people. And but is that the route we like go? I used to think that way, but I think it's more. I think we've gone on more on the economic side because you get more friends that way. Talk about economy, talk about politics, you get all kind of angry like people. So just follow the money, as they say, right? To build the nation. We're doing this to build our country. We're not doing this to build our pockets. We talk to business people and they like put in investments. We always remind them of that. We're not really here to build on business, even though we know it takes resources to do the work we do. So the apology law is powerful because every whereas clause after that first one, that's what they admit into. They admit into all that. So gotta stop. I think we've been talking our executive people have been talking all this time about, being more straightforward about, really what's happening to our people. We get on virus in us that cannot handle. We gotta be free to take that virus out of us. And that's the independence that we needed. State and the federal government, as far as with Hawaii, can never be settled on the land and what they have in Hawaii. You're gonna always have problems, issues, trouble. I mean, look at what's happening in Hawaii. How much crime get going on? That's because so much freedom this country get. It's crime upon crime upon crime. And then, but this country or this state was built upon our crime to begin with. I just see that as you sow, so shall you reap, right? It's just coming back in many ways. So I think, and that leads to a lot of like the end of the apology law. It talks about reconciliation. Actually, the words is restitution, restoration, all that kind of stuff. But it's given us enough ammunition to take outside into the international arena and to educate people, in that area. Huge education.
Well, that's a perfect segue to my next question. I would love to know, or I think we all would love to know more about the international arena that you're working in. Can you talk more about international relations with the Nation of Hawaiʻi? Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Sure.
Absolutely. So Hawaii is in the middle of the archipelago, or the most isolated in the world. And so, our leaders before, our kupuna, had to go out as well. So, we're not the first to travel. As a lot of you know here, King Kalakaua is known for his world navigation. In 1881, he circumnavigated. There was the first monarch to circumnavigate the world, and he did it in record time using different technology, steamboats, and many countries welcomed him in. And so it started last year. When we first started going to Asia. This is from some work that we've been doing in Europe and other places to work on building up some of our financial systems and work on building some of our technologies that we use for our citizenship and our CRM. The first location that we visited was Malaysia, actually, Kuala Lumpur, and we opened up our first international consulate there with our ambassador, Mr. Wong. And so we have a team of consuls and advisors around the world in over 10 different countries who know our mission, they know our vision, they tell us aloha whenever we have a call. And it's powerful to see. It was eye-opening when we went to Malaysia last year because Kalakaua did visit Malaysia and he visited that region. And the people of the Malay people knew who he was and they heard of his legacy and other historians, David Malo. We saw some books. There was an archivist at one of the festivals that we were invited to, and he was excited to show us this photo that he had of David Malo. And so they've heard of our people. You know, we're from this family of islands called Austronesia, and so it's amazing to travel over 140 years later to continue to educate, follow in the footsteps of our kupuna, to tell our story, and then also to get resources. You know, go out to build business and bring some of those resources back to our people. And so after Kuala Lumpur, we continue to build and build up our connections. We just got back from 1 month on the road. We visited India, Nepal, and China. And those trips were all under the framework of peace and friendship. You know, the Kingdom of Hawaii had over 30 treaties before the overthrow. And so, you know, the reestablishment of those treaties and the re-education of who we are. And we've been well received. You know, everyone out there knows who Hawaii is. In South Asia, where we went, we were some of the first Hawaiians that they met. And it's great to do that work and continue on the work. We're talking to many countries now who are interested in signing peace and friendship treaties with the Nation of Hawaiʻi. In addition, we're also working directly with the tribes in America to sign nation-to-nation treaties that allow us to share resources and some of the things that President Kanahele talked about, resources and knowledge. Yeah.
Well, I have a question to build on that. So the treaties that the Kingdom of Hawaii had, do we still have? Are they still being held accountable? Those 27 to 30 countries that Kalakaua had, or even Kauikeʻuli, excuse me, King Kamehameha III, those treaties, are they still in effect, I guess is the question?
Yeah, I think the treaties itself, I think the authority of it still exists. The authority of the treaties still exists. And the apology law really points at what they destroyed, right? So they violated their treaty too, you know, the United States. So we utilize the law, the authority vested in each one of us as Hawaiians. That's why the organization of our people, you know, during that time, it was a learning experience. We never did that before. Nobody ever created a country and realized that your country got stolen and all these things, these bad things happen. So, you know, and plus, you know, like Brian keep, you know, saying like that, we're more of the kind of streets kind of people, you know, like in the community and stuff. It never know how to, you know, even dress up. You got to dress up and look good.
You look good, you look good.
But it's, I think it's that way we operate because we're focusing on what the nation can do, and that way we don't run into any issues, conflicts with anybody else. They're trying to do a good thing and try to save the country. We know we're doing that, and I think we know we're not getting funding from the federal government or the state government or the city government, so we go outside and look for them, you know, look for the resources that can help us. Self-determination is that way. If you talk about independence, then why are you still playing with the dollar bill, right? Why you know your own currency? Why you got to rely on this and that? So it's not our fault that we got stuck in this situation in Hawaii. It's not our fault at all, not the generations today, not the last 10 generations. It's things that happened that's beyond our, imagination that took place, and we're really adamant about like using all the facts and finding that we have, because that is all the ammunition we need, But aside from all the good stuff, unless you do something, you put action behind it, it's just gonna be a nice plan, pretty, nice paper you're using and all that. So I think it's more of that, direct action is, actions speak louder than words.
Well, I want to open the floor if anybody has any questions in just one moment. We have a Zoom question that came in that I'm going to ask, might be to John, but whoever can answer it. And then we'll open it to the floor if anybody has any questions. I have lots more, but just want to give them a chance. What impact, if any, does the dismissal of the legal action Hawaiian Kingdom versus Biden on December 14th, 2022 have on the international legal status of the Kingdom of Hawaii? And can you also briefly describe that litigation and its intent?
I did. You want to go? No, go ahead. We'll defer to the lawyer.
Please.
So lawyers always have to preface, I didn't actually read that decision, but I think Nation of Hawaiʻi likes to distinguish that not to say that kingdom law is not important, it is, it's very important. It's a different tool. It's another tool in a broad toolbox of what Hawaiians can use to engage with the world, to show them who they are and what their goals are. But I would say Nation of Hawaii's legal focus is on the apology law. And then I just wanted to go back to your treaty question. The significance of the treaties is that if we were once a country and they illegally overthrew us, then the restoration of our country is the eventual consequence and the goal. So that's our focus, right? And so in that way, I don't have any specific comments as to that, but I think the nation's legal foundations and focus has always been international human rights law, international indigenous rights law, apology law, and then just sort of the law of nations, right? If the Hawaiian nation was once a country, then independence and the restoration of that country is the goal. And so in that way, I think I would say that that's the focus.
And I think too, one other thing to understand, when America apologized, they didn't apologize to the Kingdom of Hawaii or to the Queen. They apologized to the people of Hawaii for suppressing their national sovereignty, right? And so our national sovereignty doesn't just rest in the Kingdom of Hawaii. It doesn't just rest in the nation of Hawaii. It rests in you when you activate it. And so whatever decision gets made out there, whether it's Kingdom of Hawaii or Nation of Hawaii or all of these things, that's specifically to them. But it doesn't extinguish the fact that we do have national sovereign rights. And it's up to us to exercise that. So like something like this decision, it wouldn't stop us from doing anything because we're not the Kingdom of Hawaii, right? We're a country called the Nation of Hawaii, that it's Hawaiians that belong to this country are asserting our sovereign rights in today's time, here and now. So all of these relationships that we create with Indian country, with all these different tribes, with these other countries, these are all brand new relationships, but they were forged by the fact that America recognized our sovereignty, that it still exists. That's all they believe. That's how we got through all these different doors, and these people that were going out to get resources from. It's sort of like how we went and got our own reconciliation and how we got our own land. If we was to wait for the state or the US government to solve every single one of our Hawaiian issues, we'd be waiting for a long time. We have to go out, and because we understand our kuleana and the rights that entails. We have to go figure out our house's situation ourselves. You know, why not? We cannot just wait for somebody else to do them. We got to figure out our economic issues. We got to figure out our food sovereignty issues ourselves and just operate in that. So it's not a limiting thing. Anytime, you know, something comes up, it's just something that we have to deal with straight up. But it's empowering to just.
To your question, we wouldn't be able to tell whether it had effect or not on that question.
Yeah.
I can see the effect we have when you apply direct action to the things you do. But I cannot really tell on that. Yeah. Whether it helps or not, but it's right on. You know, that's supposed to be for us anyway, right?
And then if sovereignty, Hawaiian national sovereignty lives in the people, so long as there are Hawaiians in this world, there's the right and the hope, the eventual goal that the nation will be restored through a country, right? So long as Hawaiians keep doing well. And so I think when people think of Nation of Hawaii, why are you guys doing like socioeconomic initiatives? Why do you care about housing? Why do you care about jobs? Why do you care about things like the Mākeke and land restrictions? Because forming a nation is one thing, but are the people ready to do it, right? Have they become sovereign in themselves on a personal level before they can engage with each other as a collective to form a government? And so I think that's really important. And I like that, the quote about we are the, our ancestors' wildest dreams. I actually think Hawaiians are the manifestation of strategic planning of Hawaiians, our kupuna, who knew that we got the long game. We've been doing it for 130 years, but the long game is strong. And so long as we focus that if the goal is our country and we keep living and doing well and thriving and making sure there's Hawaiians here to take back that country, restore it, et cetera, like that is the goal, I think. And so I honor and respect any legal process, but I also think sometimes those things can be divisive. But I like to say, hey, you doing anything for Hawaiian rights? I'm with it. You know, we're doing one thing, you're doing another, but anyone fighting for it in any way, I think is really wonderful and valid. But just this is what Nation of Hawaii does. It's also an invitation to everyone to join. You know, we love volunteers who do all different kinds of things. That's how the nation thrives. So yeah.
Great, mahalo. I'd like to take a few minutes now if there's anybody out in the audience that has a question they'd like to ask. I think there's a microphone, or we're gonna just, if there's any on Zoom, you can drop it in the, what do you call it, the chat. I can't see it, but hopefully somebody can. You don't mind introducing yourself though when you have your question? And if there aren't any, that's okay. Just throwing it out, giving you the chance, because this building manually locks at 7 p.m. So we have to be out by 6:58.
Aloha mai. My name is Cheyenne. I am Hawaiian diaspora. I've talked to Brandon a couple times, talked to Kealiʻi a couple times, been to the Mākeke, but my question was kind of regarding the apology law, and it's a question that I've been chewing on for a while, like since I learned about the apology law. And it's really like, why would they do it? Like, it's in our best interest, right? As like Hawaiian sovereigns, like trying to restore our sovereignty. But I'm thinking, I was like, the Senate looked over this, the House looked over this, hundreds, thousands of people looked over this. It ended up on the president's desk and they still signed it. And I still don't, like, it's not in their best interest. So I still don't know why. I don't know if anybody knows why, but that's my question.
Question?
Why would they sign the apology? Why did they?
They don't have to. All we're doing is putting it out to educate people. But I think would be, if they read it and they really hit what they, I mean, you know, like really read with understanding, then I think they're gonna get in touch with, you know, who they are. Because that happened to us, you know, when we first read the law. You know, my kupunas back in 1994, the conference, they used to cry because this law came about. They used to cry about like, and then they were sharing stories, like stories after stories, and I was like, about not speaking Hawaiian in school, having to stand in one different line where they had another, like the Japanese Americans would be in one line, but you had to stand in another line and all these different things. And so this law brought the truth out so they wouldn't have to hide anymore. The kupuna was holding this all inside them because the way they were in cry was too much, like you like. And in '94, I think the oldest we had kupuna at that time was Auntie Jenny here. She was like 94 or something, 90 something years old. So they live in the time of, our queen and all that kind. And so the apology law had a big impact. It was played down by a lot of people after the first 2-3 years of its existence. And so everybody is trying to use the apology, but hide them as the legal foundation. That's the legal foundation for kingdom. That's the legal foundation for federal recognition. It's a legal foundation for a kaka bill, any kind of legislation they're trying to do. That's what the apology law is used for. And I think that the last civil beat thing, the one that came out in the magazine, even Keanu Sai went back to apology law as where all this information came from. So, as far as why should they?
Or why did they? Why did the U.S. sign it?
Well, the U.S. was trying to clean the slate.
Yeah.
Yeah, they was trying to clean the slate. Because if I tell you the truth, these people still sleeping. We might get away with it and make them federal recognized tribes. Because we were in a battle that time with the federal recognized supporters. That wasn't easy. Because they had our organizations and everybody fighting against each other. And was because federal rec gave them money, or so they thought, and independence had no future, had no, you don't believe in them, then it's not going to happen. And so that is the side that all the independence groups, nations, kingdoms, kings, queens, organizations upheld. They upheld that. But we, the only ones standing today, because we stayed with our politics. That's justice. You can impede, you can suppress, but you cannot hide from justice. Especially if you get us guys. We're not going to hide from that. We're not going to hide from the truth. That's what the apology law is all about, why they just thought they had them in a bag. Senator Inouye was hoping we would go federal recognition, go as a federal recognized tribe. Never happened.
I'll tell you one thing though, they never did do that again. They learned from that mistake. They never gave anybody else any apologies.
They're still the kind dabbling in that area. We got to be careful. But then again, I think it's too overwhelming already. The fact, okay, really, what's happening in Hawaii with sovereignty today? What is really happening? We get trust, we get foundations, we get all these things, but something's still not right. We're still not, clicking together and all that. Because the biggest portion of the population is not being helped. The social conditions is shot. We got to health, housing, education, kupuna, mental health care. We got a blockchain of genealogy that we can share with them on the overthrow and all that is following us. Everything we do, the Hawaiian, you got a injection of what took place in our history. As and I think a lot of this clears it did for me, clear the mind and went from military occupation to coexistence, like how Lindsay was sharing, so we had to stick coexistence in there so we don't make trouble. Because you make trouble, get consequences. You do something, get consequences. Everything get consequences, right? And so at that time, it was really it was really learning. Everybody was learning, so. Sorry about that.
No, and then just to add, I was talking about this with Brandon, there was a more favorable political landscape. Governor Waihee was best friends with Bill Clinton, who signed it, right? And we had really strong senators at the time. So that as well, but good question.
Mahalo for that. Are there any other? Yeah, in the back there.
Hi, aloha. My name is Kaina, and when everyone was introducing themselves, I heard someone mention like the practice of la'au lapa'au, and so I was really interested in like learning more about that relationship with la'au lapa'au practices and the Nation of Hawaiʻi, and like why you chose to incorporate that into the nation.
Aloha, I'll speak on that. So for me, my personal experience behind La'au Lapa'au, I wanted to go to the school to become a doctor, but decided that I'm not gonna be in debt to go into Western medicine when I can go back to the ʻāina for medicine. So for La'au Lapa'au, honestly, going back to the ʻāina is the root for a lot of problems. And I truly believe that everything that you put out on the outside has something to do in the inside. So starting with farming is a big passion of mine, and being able to grow herbs and products that are able to heal people is something really important to me. But if you have any more questions about the specifics, let me know too.
Oh, tell them your IG. We can message you.
So I didn't want to advertise my products, but since Brandon mentioned it, I sell sea moss. I'm sure I see some of my customers here. So sea moss is basically limu from the ocean that I blend, clean, and boil into a gel form, and I blend it with herbs and fruits that we grow in the Nation of Hawaiʻi, Puʻuhonua, Waimānalo, and sea moss was one thing that helped to heal a lot of my internal problems and a lot of my customers. So Kanahele Roots on Instagram if you're interested.
I'll speak on that as well. Our village used to be home to thousands of Hawaiians on the site. So the idea of being sustainable and controlling your own health, you have to know where those herbs are. And I think that what we can provide in terms of a thought process for the future is that the Puʻuhonua model should be a space where you have that access, and that you have people maintaining those spaces, and that those herbs get into the community. So it's not a long list of things that need to be produced, but there's terraces upon terraces of places that need to be restored, brought back to health, and have the spaces for those herbs. And more than likely are the home for those places in general. So all those passions, please come at any opportunity that you have to come to the gate, be involved so that we can possibly put seeds in the ground. On any one of those issues that you guys see that you guys can contribute, we all need your help. You know, we all have volunteer basis and a way that we need to multiply ourselves, and engaging in any way that you can is how all that happens.
John.
On the same tip of la'au lapa'au, at the core of that is really wellness, and you know, part of that work includes some different technologies that we've been exploring, specifically from China on negative ions, and really replicating processes that we see in ahupua'a of you know, oxygenating and restoring. And so that, I think, in addition to some of our native medicines and our native foods, can really help to bring wellness, more wellness to our native Hawaiian people under our health programs. So,
you know, some of this technology is pretty amazing. We also do digital acupuncture. I've done that for like almost 28 years. And so what John talking about is this negative ion masks and technology. that we got in, yeah, we just got a bunch of stuff in, so. Going back to La'au and healthcare and all that stuff. We physically, in about an hour, our blood pressure and uric acid went drop like big time percentage after the treatment. And, but we had to go into this chamber. It's a chamber that you lie down in, and it just blasts you with these negative ions. And what the oxygen in your body needs, that kind of stuff. So, and we did blood tests and all that. I mean, you could see wigglies, and then their wigglies was dead after that. You know, it's like,
Yeah, it was,
holy
my blood
shit,
was,
man.
needed some repair after India and Nepal.
But yeah, and we try to, as we build the country, the nation, we're starting to see all these other things that go with building a nation, right? We look at it politically, economically, socially, and culturally. That's the terminology that is used in the international arena. The voice, how you make your funds, your health, housing, education, all that stuff, social conditions, and culture. So we've learned how to discipline in those areas, because then the discussion comes real short, real simple, right to the point. Nothing laps over, unless they're helping each other. With a bad economy, you get bad social conditions, high prices, all that kind of stuff. So.
Are there any other questions from the audience? Please, yes, right here. So I can use the mic just for the Zoom. Here it comes, thank you.
I was interested in, you talked about getting away from the US dollar. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah. Yeah, we've been trying hard to get away from that. I think the fact that, most of the countries going digital now is going to be one of the ways. We actually appointed a governor of our central bank that we putting together in China right now. And again, we're learning all this stuff now. It's new to us. I signed an act, a central bank act, and now we got experts that helping us put that all together, technology-wise and all that stuff. So I'm serious about that, because we need that, but at the same time, we need to coexist in the system. So our coexistence exists through a nonprofit, a 501c3. We also have affiliations with NGOs too, for the international side like that.
I think for the creating our own currency too, it's all part of nation building. So that's the natural next step to having our own country. We gotta have our own monetary system. We gotta have our own food supply. We gotta have all these different things, and so it's just a natural progression of a nation. A lot of people sometimes most of us, when we think of sovereignty, we think it's only political, but it's not. It's economic sovereignty, it's food sovereignty, it's even internet sovereignty. It's all of these little sovereignties, and the enemy of all of those different sovereignties is not the state or federal government. It's our own comfortability with the system we're in right now. So we have to get uncomfortable and make certain sacrifices to build out these solutions, but it has to start somewhere. And these are not illegal solutions. These can be created right now, and it's happening organically with like the Mākeke and some of our businesses that we're creating, but it's growing. So we have an alternative in place. And there's something I learned from my uncle. We cannot just complain about the problem without coming up with a better solution. So it's a twofold approach to a lot of our.
We tried to, yeah. We tried on the cards, credit card, to work our own system. You still had to indulge in SWIFT and all that stuff. But with,
Yeah, we actually implemented a Hawaii dollar card that we can start to use internally at our Mākeke, and our citizens can start to use it to pay utilities and such. But it allows us to exchange our USD into a Hawaii dollar. It gets put onto a Visa card, and then you can use it as an access card, and you can also use it to pay for your purchases at the Mākeke. And so this is just one model that we're implementing, and then different currencies can start to get implemented, including liquidity and all that stuff. We can start to launch our own financial products and do lending and help to accent the current economic situation.
and passive activism. Trying, different ways to not infiltrate the system as much as exist, coexist in the way transactions are done and all that. We spent a lot of time looking at the bank stuff because we had to. Because we wouldn't let anybody else try this unless we tried them first. Just because, even though it can work and all that, but it's not, what we're looking for. And we're not gonna use anybody for test things out either. True blue.
Yeah, a couple more.
I just want to take one more from the Zoom and then I'll come back to the audience. I think we touched on this a little bit, but I think this potentially needs some clarification. Does the nation claim to be the legal successor to the kingdom and thus party to the treaties mentioned, or is the nation forging new treaties entirely? I think this is a Zoom question. They're looking for clarity on that once again.
It's new treaties. Okay. It's a new relationship. So, we honor the kupuna and all their work, but our sovereignty is intact today. It can be a kingdom if we want. It can be a nation, whatever it is. The nation is choosing to forge new pathways and new, relationships.
And the authority comes from the law, the apology law. That's the authority.
Yeah.
Not kingdom law, none of that.
I think they're just looking for clarity.
Yeah.
And then there was, question here. We have the mic coming. Aina's running really fast. Faster. Okay.
Aloha. I was going to take my rocks home tonight, but I got to assert my assertion here. Are you aware of Oahu, sites of Oahu? Okay, I'm Edward Ni'aupio's, what is it, 2 generations. Thank you, mahalo. So what I'm concerned about is back then and then moving forward. Are you using publication methodologies for your work? Is my concern at this point in time.
As far
Or
as
are
the
you just,
restoration
because you kept saying terraces and terraces.
Well,
So
the borders of our village end at the sugarcane plantation flume. So
Yeah.
beyond that is the Waimānalo Forest Reserve. And being that we landlock a lot of the terraces, and the terraces are being overrun by large invasive trees, the walls are being dismantled because of these huge overgrowth. So we've been slowly just holding the space until we can rally the community to come and do the right thing. Because at the moment, no rocks are being touched, no machinery gets back there, and it's all about children. So the space is continuing Hawaiian hands, and it's all about removing invasives, understanding how the whole system worked, mountain to ocean, and how that whole system, ultimately benefited the water. How those terraces took dirty water, sediment, brought it back, every part of restoring that, we see huge value in how the water operates.
right, the water, the flume, the one from Olomana.
Yep.
Yeah, I know. There's a lot that I know about, but I am concerned at this point in time. I mean, I'm kind of old, you know what I mean?
If we don't do
Yeah,
anything now,
if we don't.
these places are being destroyed by a new warrior
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
house.
yeah.
And if we don't interact now and have our children understand these variables, they're not going to understand how to tackle them. And when we have an understanding of what's going on now, I think now we have access to some of the best arborists in the islands. We have an understanding of what we want to protect, how to bring them down properly, and how to make sure that this is for the future cemented for our community. And that ultimately these spaces, you know, are here. Our children seem to be the one personality shift where all that eha, that soreness, immediately starts to come back to happy community. So that's really been the way that we've been answering to all the back in the terraces, to let them steer us in how it's going to serve them, to really answer your question.
Right, and we're in this building here, Judge Richardson, Supreme Court, Supreme Court is common law. And so, yeah, that is my concern. As I sit here, I don't know how to get the the little children, connected to that.
Yeah.
That's what's in this building here. Yeah, mahalo, mahalo, everyone.
Mahalo. There's another question, I think, there in the back corner, ʻāina.
Aloha, Samantha Ko'uinoa. The question that I kind of have, similar to Auntie's question here, is for me personally, it seems like since 2019 in the Mauna movement, there's been a lot more curiosity, or maybe even like a re-energizing of Kanaka Maoli, right? And you know, I've been part of many conversations, but then it's kind of like, what's the next step? So you folks have demonstrated, you know, you've been able to get this Puʻuhonua. What would you say would be the next step? Is it for us as Kanaka, we have, you know, last week we learned 300,000 throughout the island chain, 400,000 in the diaspora. How do we get Ea, and do we look to build Puʻuhonuas or Ea in our individual spaces? Or is the idea for us to come from our spaces to Puʻuhonua, Waimānalo, and support the nation and the building there? Just curious, you know, in terms of like operating in the system that we're in right now. If, say, I could hui together this whole group and we could buy 50 acres on Hawaii Island, how do I use the apology law to be able to create the Puʻuhonua, or any Kanaka out there? You know, like, how do we get from where we are now, renting, houselessness and whatnot, to where you folks are? What would be your recommendation?
I think it all starts with each individual, and first I feel like everyone should always learn their moʻokuʻauhau, your bloodline, and where you come from, and through that you can really your ancestors will guide you through the right path. And first and foremost, always learn from your kupuna, because they're the best storytellers.
I think, you know, understanding the law, and that's why every time we educate people, we try and educate them on the law, not just, you know, like as a repetitive thing, but so that people can understand that this is yours. This doesn't belong to the Nation of Hawaii. The Nation of Hawaii is using it to move forward in our certain way, and so we kind of making our own trail. But when every Kanaka understands the apology law in their way, you know, they can begin to see where they can contribute to, whether it's buying land, right? Queuing up with a bunch of Kanaka, and then when you buy the land, you're there, you start asserting your rights, utilizing the law. You know, there's different kinds of strategy. You know, some of the strategies we're implementing is just like, you know, understanding that we have these rights. The political situation might not be clear yet, but that shouldn't stop us from not nation building. So now we're building community, you know, with entrepreneurs through the Mākeke, restoration work like what Kealiʻi them is doing, and just building that nation without anybody, you know, having any say to stop us, you know. But it starts with knowing, like how Lehua is saying, your moʻokuʻauhau and your rights as a Kanaka.
I think too that you know that the nation, whatever we're doing for even the people that don't know, you know, that have no idea about anything, or even having this meeting. And so it was like, we always talk about this, that our citizens, our people should share in all the industries we build, including the central bank. We found out that it might have to be a commercial, not a central. And then we have agriculture as one of our industries, energy, communications, transportation, things like that. So the idea is for us to just go out and get the best platter we can get and bring them home for the people. Believe it or not, that is the goal right now. And I think in order to, I don't think you people are, I don't think we are ahead of anybody in that sense, as much as because we carry kuleana that includes everybody. So I don't ever feel like we're leaving on Hawaiian behind. You know what I mean? And you don't have to feel that way either, because we're out there doing it for all us, you know. But that is, I think that's a mindset or mentality that not being used. When you share the wealth, it's going to be better for the whole community. And I'm talking about like 1.34 million people in Hawaii. When you go to China and they get 1.34 billion people and have no homeless, no houseless, how you did that, right? Who's your boss? I like know how you guys did this. The place is immaculate in China. Hey, look at the streets, you cannot believe like that. Totally opposite from India, but it's the fact that, you know, get examples, not on the west side, on the east side to look at and actually, and hey, what about that model? I want to be like that, right? So, like Brand has brought up constantly too, that's our idea, is just do what we do best. You know, this is what we do best. And, you know, you get less accountability to the immediate people around you. You just get, you know, enough to work with. I mean, we need more people. We need more help. If we could pay them, that would be even more better. And that's what we look for, resources. When we travel, we're not traveling for good looks. Tell them, hey, come visit our sunny skies and all that. We're going out there and we're hunting. We're actually hunting. We're out there, you know, creating peace and friendship relations with people that wants the same thing. Because if we cannot do that and become friends, then why are we going to do business together? Because these guys want to do business. You know, our actually intentions right now is to bring in a pipeline from Asia to bring in. We want to be supplying Foodland, Times, and Safeway, and all these markets too, with organic food and cheaper prices, right? That's what's killing us over here. Shipping costs and all that, just raising the bar, and you know, you buy in volume to drop the price, or at least, you know, work the prices off the shipping, but that don't work either. So the work we do is really important. It's actually good fun, exciting, because I know we're doing something for our people. If we were to stay home and participate, not that it's not necessary, it is, to participate in what's going on home here, I think we would be losing more ground than where we at now. Because we out there, we are around the world. In Asia, they're starting to learn more about us. And they want to help, you know, they want to do business. We want to bring that business to Hawaii. We want to take products that you folks make and send them through the pipeline back to them, because they want to buy the products too from Hawaii. So I think that's, you know, that's the stories we can talk about in the future, but that is where we at right now. We're in that mode. Like John was saying, we have, offices being set up, Shenzhen, Chengdu, and Beijing. And this is ours. This is ours. You can bet on, especially if you're Hawaiian. Not the non-Hawaiians, not take this personal, but our Hawaiian people gotta be first. We always was last, always. A thought of. So I think.
One more question.
Yeah, we have time for one more question before we start winding down. Was there another? We'll take this as the last question, and then I'm going to ask for some closing mana'o.
Just a quick question, and maybe too long an answer, but mention at the front of the proclamation and at the end of it, why is that in there? And do you guys have a relationship with them? I just don't know.
The UCC. Yeah, the UCC offered their own apology, the United Church of Christ, and they actually offered cash and land. That went to an organization called Puʻuhonua Foundation back in 1993. That nonprofit, from what Uncle Bumpy shares with us, is supposed to support the movement. That was supposed to be like the economic engine to fund a lot of these things. But you look today, they went totally in one whole nother direction, kind of more, Christian and social and helping everybody else. But that's actually, they put real skin in the game, and so. Yeah, thank you for acknowledging that. Yeah, apologizing for their part, the missionaries that played a part. The guys that never apologized yet, that played the biggest part, is actually the Big Five. And, we're looking into ways where we can hold them accountable as well. It's not just the U.S. government, it's not just the state government, but they had players that is still around today that aren't being held accountable. Hawaiian Electric, A&B, all of them. You can name them all. They're right around us. They've yet to be held accountable. But
yeah, nobody did that yet with them. So the feds, state of Hawaii, UCC, they at least did something. Some kind of action took place. UCC came with money and land. That's why they got that place up in they got one place over there, the office. Well, last I knew, it was over there. And but the Big Five is an everyday thing for us. They still operate. They still, we complain about the U.S. doing this and the state doing this, but nobody really pays attention to the Big Five. That's the real. It's the guys getting away with it right now. So, at that time will come, it's still, you can impede, you can suppress, but you cannot hide, It's going to come back to bite you.
Mahalo. With that, I would like to ask the panel to perhaps share a closing mana'o, one nugget you'd like to leave with us. We'll start with Kealiʻi, if that's okay. Anything you want to share?
Just want to leave you guys with the understanding that we care about our resources. And I want you guys to understand that born and raised here, seeing it change, watching it go in a direction that we're not happy with, you got to start engaging as soon as you can. And making sure that you can apply your skill set to your community. Traveling to India, traveling to places where we see population out of control, we came home with the understanding that we can really handle our problems after seeing the expansive of how crazy the world is. Our population, the amount of help out there, on an international scale, there's more millionaires in China than there are people in the US. There are more billionaires in India than there are almost anywhere else in the world. Don't be happy with the budget that OHA is giving you. There's so much more out there that we have to give to the world as well. The way that our queen handled herself and the way that we continue to handle ourselves, the world needs to understand how peace should be portrayed and how the health of people across the world should, hear how our story is. So there's a lot more than just dealing with the US. There's just many more things that our people have to gain.
Mahalo, Lehua.
I just wanted to leave off saying that education and knowledge is the most important thing you can do for yourself. And there's a reason a lot of this wasn't taught in schools. The education system doesn't always want you to know who you are so they can control you. So always just educate yourselves and remember who you are. Mahalo.
Mahalo, Lindsay.
I just want to acknowledge, kind of like Auntie was saying, we are in a courtroom, and to be honest, most Hawaiians don't want to be in courtrooms, right? That's part of the project of colonization, but also when our rights are contested by outside legal mechanisms, sometimes they don't go right. So I was really happy we're here sharing about the nation, what Hawaiian people are doing to positively move forward, Hawaiian rights, independence, et cetera. So that was really awesome. And then I also just wanted to acknowledge Uncle Bumpy's family and all the families in Puʻuhonua, Waimānalo, and all the wonderful people who kind of have uplifted Uncle and the nation throughout the way, because as he said, sovereignty work isn't paid, so it's all the people behind the scenes that ensure and make sure that our leaders are able to do this work that's trauma all day long, difficulty all day long, but like having that family support is so very important. So I'm mahalo all of you and acknowledge you.
Mahalo. I'd like to give President Kanahele the final word, so I'm going to move over to Brandon first.
Well, love of country.
I was going to give you the final word, but you can take that and still have the final word.
Please visit nationofhawaii.org. You guys want to come, learn a little bit more about us. We'll also be having a Mākeke on July 22nd, this Saturday, where people can actually come and see the Nation of Hawaii in person. Then we can have longer, deeper conversations. You guys get questions, bring them over there. I'm going to be there. All of us will be there, so come check us out.
I'll add that independence begins with an independent mindset. And so just remember your identity, who you are, where you come from, and aloha.
And I'll again leave the final word to our this Lā Hoʻihoʻi Ea honoree on July 30th at Thomas Square. Please all come down. But I'd like to leave the final words with President Bumpy Kanahele to share our closing remarks today.
Yeah, I think Auntie Pilahi says it all, the world going to turn to Hawaii for world peace because Hawaii has the key, and the key is aloha. So aloha, all you folks, and thank you for coming. Love of country. Snow, we fight for you. We're not, we might not be talking to you a lot or communicating that way, but you guys get on ace in a hole. So mahalo, thank you. And thank you for all the work done by the staff and brought over there, our executive director, and for making this possible.
Yeah, mahalo again to the friends of the Judiciary History Center, Puʻuhonua, Waimānalo, and all of you for being with us, everybody at Zoom, LAN, aloha. Please don't forget to get your parking validated on the way out. Just kidding. Have a great evening, drive safe. Mahalo, ahui ho.